So 8.3 number 2 is very, very similar to 8.3 number 1. You're going to be finding the same three pieces of information. You're going to find the axis of symmetry, the vertex, and the y-intercept of the parabola. The only difference is now we're going to put it on a graph. Okay, so if I'm just going to hop right to the examples. Up here it talks about how to find the axis of symmetry. We're using x equals the opposite of b over 2a. Okay, and to find the axis of symmetry, the y-intercept, we're just using 0c. Okay, and we use this value of the axis of symmetry to find our vertex as well. So let's see what it looks like. It says graph, and it says to find those pieces. Okay, I'm going to find the axis of symmetry first. So I'm going to say x equals, in this particular case, a is equal to 1, because there's a 1x squared. B is equal to negative 6, and C is equal to 2. So the opposite of B would be a positive 6 over 2 times A. A is 1, so this would be 6 over 2, which is 3. So my axis of symmetry is a positive 3. So if I were graphing that, it would look like this. Okay, I want to go back now and I want to find my vertex. So to find my vertex, I put that 3, that same axis of symmetry value in as the x-coordinate of my vertex. And I'm going to plug that into my equation. So 3 squared is 9. 9 minus 3, 6 times 3 is 18, plus 2. So 9 minus 18, that's a negative 9, plus 2. So I get negative 7 out of that. So my vertex is at 3, negative 7. And I'm going to move some of this so that we can see better. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll estimate my vertex to be approximately right there. And then the y-intercept is always 0 for an x-coordinate because it's on the y-axis. And then it's my c value, so 0, 2. So it's going to cross the y-axis at 0, 2. Now, one thing that we know about a parabola is that we always have points that mirror on both sides of the axis of symmetry. So instead of putting in another value and finding a third point, I can just mirror this point. It's 1, 2, it's 3 blocks away from the axis of symmetry. So if I go 3 blocks the other direction, I'll be about right there. And that's enough for me to draw my U shape. Okay, so we do end up with 3 points. We have the vertex, and we have the y-intercept, and we can just mirror that y-intercept on the other side. Okay, let's try the second one here. If I'm finding the axis of symmetry, I would say x equals the opposite of b is the positive 4 over 2 times a. My a value is negative 2. So I'm going to get 4 over negative 4, or x equals negative 1. Okay, so I'm going to graph that. Here's where x equals negative 1. Okay, now I'm going to find my vertex. To find the vertex, I'm going to use negative 1. Those are always going to match. I put a negative 1 into this equation. This has given us some issues at times. Okay, it says negative 2x to the second. So when I put that negative 1 in, you gotta ask yourself, do we multiply first or do we square first? And we square first. So I'm taking a negative 1 and I'm squaring it. That's going to give me a positive 1 times a negative 2. So this is going to be a negative 2. When I put that negative 1 in here, I have a negative 4 times a negative 1. That's a positive 4. Negative times a negative is positive. And then minus 3. Negative 2 plus 4 is 2 minus 3. I get a negative 1. So my vertex is at negative 1, negative 1. And where's my y-intercept? It's going to be at 0, negative 3. Now, it's very helpful if you ask yourself at the beginning, what do I expect this parabola to look like? And from the beginning, if I notice that my a coordinate here, my a value is negative 2, it's negative, so I expect the parabola to open up down. And that's what I'm seeing. When I mirror this point on the other side of the axis of symmetry, I'm going to have a parabola that is opening down, and that's what I expected. Okay, so that's what section 8.3 number 2 is about, finding the same three pieces of information, your axis of symmetry, your vertex, and your y-intercept, but now we're putting it on a graph. And one thing that might happen to you is if your vertex values get a little bit high, you'll have to, it is possible, and many times we have to change the interval on our graph. You don't have to go by ones. You could go by twos or threes or fives, depending on what values you're having to graph. So you can make that decision, and if you change your interval, just label it on your graph.